So the other thing that I have found very helpful is to have some. I'm realizing now that this generation has not necessarily figured out things that you do over time at camp. One being, first of all, one of the things that I think is very important, I've discovered where to be when there's a tornado coming. You can, because I listen to battery-powered radio, I would know when bad weather was coming, and also when I looked to the sky and I paid attention to the animals, I could tell when bad weather was coming. So if you ever wonder about where to go, right, when there's bad weather coming, is that if you're looking toward the new building, there's two buildings that go. There's two large buildings at camp. This is the one that has the roof line here. It has small windows that open outward, and that are my two favorite bedrooms, and it has a little bedroom back here that's great to lie in that little bedroom when you want to hear the deer run across that thing. But here's the what we call, here's the big opening where the boats are stored, and here's the door to go in, and then over here is a fenced in yard area, so your dogs don't, if they want to be outside, and you have to leave them there. There's a doggy door on this side, but they can be penned up and stay in there. And then over here is a wood shed, right? Well, back behind the wood shed, there is it's a ridge that runs across here, right? Here there are steps leading up to what we used to have a refuse pit up there. So we climb the steps up to it. We don't use that now. We take all of our garbage with us, leave nothing behind, and then so this used to be a sand ridge, a sand bluff, like a little bluff. It was only about maybe 3 feet high. It was sheer drop, 3 feet high, and the deer ran across behind the cabin here. But back over here, back behind the woodshed, and then it goes down to meet the ground level here. But right here, there's a little area, a little alcove that's cut up and is perfect for a couple people to hide from a bad storm, because it's on the old house faces east, or the second building, large building, faces east. So this very often bad storms come from the west and even the northwest, and so this protects you, so the storm goes over you that way. So you should know that. Now, the other thing that you should know is that 2 magic numbers. Every 15 years or so, we don't want to be reduced to clean cut. In other words, clear all the forest around the area. But every 15 years, you do what is called select cut. And you get a person, hire a person, probably from Rapid River or Power Spalding, or if need be, you can go all the way up to Marquette, or go down as far as Escanaba or Gladstone, and you hire lumberers to come and select cut. They take the old popples out, which they sell for pulp usually. We've had one time where they went to cut after 15 years, and it had been started to be drier then, So we actually had some trees that weren't for just for pulp, say, they could be sold for lumber. So we actually were able to pay for things like a new dock and all that kind of things. But every 15 year, you arrange for a select cut. And you get someone very trustworthy, because you want them not to take out the big old white pines. You don't want them to definitely take out birches. And you want them to just go through and very carefully take out what is there. They tend to leave a mess around it. And, when my dad, Carl Johnson, was alive, he would clean up that mess, and he took great pride in making it nice. But you can do what you wish. Sometimes people haven't done very much. But the idea is to cut them down, select cut them, because it's better that you cut them down when those popples get high, because if they fall over the road, then you have to carry a saw so you can get through that little 2-track road if the trees fall over a road. So, and then it gives the other trees more room to grow itself. The other thing is, remember, every 4 or 5 years, right, you have to be able to, every 4 or 5 years, be able to go to the area in the lake where the beavers build a dam. Now let's see if I can draw this carefully so you can know exactly where to find that beaver dam. You have to bust up the dam, otherwise it makes the water level go too far down in lower 18 Mile Lake. So you have to bust up this dam. Now if you look at a map, lower 18 Mile Lake basically looks like this. Camp is right here. The other camp that was called Pine Point was here. There's some camps over here. They've been occupied by they were occupied by some very noisy fishermen people that were so lazy that they had to use a boat with a motor. I always rowed, or at the most we'd use a Minn Kota, so that was quiet. But then you were in danger of scaring the loons and all that kind of stuff. If you snuck up on them, they didn't hear you coming. But anyway, if you go lower 18 Mile, there's good fishing here. There's good fishing here underneath the eagle's nest. But this is where the inlet is, and there's a house over here that's on a little island, so they have to actually row to their little cabin there. There's a cabin over here. This whole area of land was just bought by someone, and we don't know what they're going to do with it. So you may have a great deal of neighbors that come on here, but so far there's only one entrance. You have to have one public access, and that's built over here at the end. But the beavers get very busy at what's known as the inlet. The outlet is over here, right? So this is that's part of the reason it's so good fishing there, that fish can swim down to Lake Michigan through the series of lakes there. Or they can swim to the next lake anyway. But this is the inlet, and you take one of the flattest bottom boat there is. The bass boat that's up there is pretty flat now. We used to use a canoe to get back there too, but we would go, and you wouldn't take a lot of people, because you would take waiters, and you would take people who weren't afraid to get wet, because you very often had to walk back all the way far, and you would get to a place where the beavers had been very busy and built a dam, and that would start to back up the water. So you need to climb back there and bust it up, and it sends water into the rest of the lake, and you will watch it increase the height of the lake by at least a foot, if not 2 feet. So every 4 or 5 years, someone needs to bust that up. If you remember, we talked about I talked before about the deck that was built and stairs leading to the deck, right? And then we built the stairs up with my multiple sclerosis. I needed, my friend recognizes that he needed to put a hand railing for me to get up, albeit I had to walk sideways, but I could walk up and down those stairs. I still can, but I had to walk up and down those stairs, and so he took what he called a mighty log out of there. It had much beaver juju, we used to call it. It was a beaver log from there that had grown silver. I noticed that somebody must have run into it or thought it was too dangerous because they cut one of the beaver ends off. But it was tipped, right? And it was very silver, and from having all the bark stripped off of it, but it sat right there for the longest time. But anyway, so those are 2 dates. Every 15 years, you remember to select cut, and every 4 or 5 years, you bust up the dam, and now you know where to hide for a tornado.